Hi there, Terry here again, sharing another process video for Peartree Cutfiles, this time using this fabulous sweater weather title piece. As you can see, I always start with my cut file as my main idea, and I pull out a couple of photos and usually a piece or two of ephemera that I know that I want to include. So this time I've got a Bramble Fox sweater perspective. So I kind of like to lay them out and then get a kind of idea of what I'm doing. So I also always keep the insides of the letters of my cut file because I never quite know what I'm going to do. Pulled out some autumnal patterned papers and embellishments from both the Days of Splendor Pinkfresh Studio collection and the Simple Stories Cozy Days collection. I've really enjoyed using these collections this year. I'm not always a fan of autumnal stash. Sometimes the colours are not my favourite, but these have really gone down a treat. So I'm trying to decide now what to do with that cut file, and I'm thinking maybe I'll back it with that patterned paper, but then I decide that it doesn't look right, so I've pulled back out the letters from the bottom word, and I'm going to use a stencil and some Shimmerz Dazzlerz in spun sugar. It's like it's like a texture paste, but it's got a bit of a pearlescent effect, and because it's white it gives a really nice subtle effect. So I'm using it through this Echo Park stencil. It gives kind of a bit of a basket mesh type effect. It's dead easy to do. It's a bit sticky, so you'll see me having to peel the letters off the stencil and just have a bit of a clean up. So I'm going to put these wet letters to one side while I get on with the rest of my layout. That's one thing about using mixed media, is you either have to dry it with a heat tool, which does have a habit of making the paper warp, or you have to be patient and wait. So I'm just starting off with my layout. So I've put some patterned paper across the top kind of third, with the bottom edge ripped, and I'm putting a coordinating but contrasting piece of patterned paper underneath to create kind of a layered effect. Just cutting out a couple of coordinating frames from that Pinkfresh Studio Days of Splendor paper, and you'll see that I just distressed the edges of those a bit later on as well. So I'm using this banner, which is from the Simple Stories chipboard, and I've popped it up at the top of my layout. So I'm just sticking my cut file flush to the back of the page. Quite often I'll pop it up on some foam pads, but for this layout I want the bottom word, the insides to be up, creating the dimension once they're dry. So it's just a case now of starting to create where the photos are going to go and add lots of embellishment. So one of my go-to things is to mat my photos, which I tend to distress the edges of the paper with now with my scissors. It just creates a bit of a rough edge, and then I always like to overlap them, just so it creates kind of one area for you to look at, and then I can arrange my embellishments around those photos. I'm just tucking the frames in and around the photo mat, and that yellow mustard frame is going to be tucked in underneath at the bottom to create an area for journaling at the end. So I'm just working out where I'm going to put that pink sweater perspective, and I'm pulling out some coordinating coloured ephemera from the Pinkfresh Studios Days of Splendor collection. So I've not gone with things that are greens, I've gone with the oranges, the yellows and the pinks. So I've also got these circular stickers and that chipboard piece that's a mustard jumper, which I thought went well with the sweater weather title as well. So I'm just adding in some bits of ephemera, so I'm going with a central design, kind of broader where the title is, and then coming into a bit of a point towards the bottom of the layout. So I'm just working out where to put these bits of ephemera. I'm just tucking things in and about where the photos are. So I really like this camera, but you'll see shortly that I'm not a big fan of the white around the die cut, so I do like to trim it down a bit, and I actually distress the paper a bit to coordinate it with the other pieces. I've pulled out that fall sticker so that it's a circular feature similar to the one at the top of the page, and then it kind of creates a flow of repeating patterns from throughout the page. So I'm just looking at where I can add extra little bits of ephemera, and I've pulled out these perspective leaves from Bramble Fox. These are absolutely stunning, and unfortunately I don't think I've got any left now. I did have to buy extra packs. So those letters are now dry, and I'm just popping them onto my layout. As you can see, they've got kind of a shine to them where the texture paste is. It's difficult to see on the video, but I think it's more obvious on the photos at the end of the video, and that you can find on other social medias. So I'm just popping them up on foam pads to create the depth. You'll see I've not stuck down that yellow jumper yet because I want to put it over the top of a couple of the letters. Thanks for joining me today, and I will put any links in the comments below. Thanks for joining me.